Thank you. Let me just suggest, by the way, that that 1979 decision of the Supreme Court that a phone bill is not protected by the Fourth Amendment might not apply to a lot of this stuff today, given how pervasive and privacy invading this metadata has become compared to what could be done in 1979. So I don't know that I'd totally rely on that precedent to do everything that's being done. But let me ask you the following. Under Section 215, and I would also like to associate myself with the remarks that a dragnet subpoena for every telephone record, et cetera, every email record, although I know they don't do that anymore, but they could again tomorrow, and they did do it, certainly makes a mockery of the relevance standard in Section 215. If everything in the world is relevant, then there's no meaning to that word. Now, some of us offered amendments to narrow that several years ago, and in retrospect, maybe we should have adopted those amendments. But that's no excuse for a misinterpretation of relevance to the point that there is no such meaning to the word. Now, secondly, under Section 215, if you've gotten information from metadata, and you, as a result of that, think that, gee, this phone number, 873 whatever, looks suspicious, and we ought to actually get the contents of that phone. Do you need a new specific warrant?
You need at least a national security letter. All you have is a telephone number. You do not have subscriber information, so you need the subscriber information. You would have to get probably a national security letter to get that subscriber information. And then if you wanted to do more,
if you wanted to listen to the phone,
then you have to get a particularized order from the FISA court directed at that particular phone of that particular individual.
Now, is the answer you just gave me classified?
Is what?
The answer you just gave me classified in any way?
I don't think so.
Okay, then I can say the following. We heard precisely the opposite at the briefing the other day. We heard precisely that you could get the specific information from that telephone simply based on an analyst deciding that, and you didn't need a new warrant. In other words, that what you just said is incorrect. So there's a conflict.
I'm not certain it's the same answer to the same question, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, I asked the question both times, and I think it's the same question. So maybe you'd better go back and check, because someone was incorrect.
I will do that. That is my understanding of the process.
Okay, I don't question it's your understanding. It was always my understanding. Yeah. And I was rather startled the other day, and I wanted to take this opportunity to...
I'm happy to clarify it.
Thank you. Second, we have heard from Director DNI Clapper of the terrible, horrible damage to national security done by, what's his name, Snowden, by releasing this information. I'd like you to comment on that. I don't understand how national security was breached. We knew publicly, from 2006 at least, from the report in the USA Today on May 11, 2006, about the basically the existence of a massive NSA database of metadata from domestic phone calls. That was reported back then. We debated it in this committee and on the floor of the House in connection with reauthorization, I believe in 2012 and in 2008, at least several times. So that was known publicly. The only thing that was not known, as far as I can tell, that was revealed was the specifics of that court order, which tell us nothing other than what was already public, plus you can have it for whatever length of time it was. And even the stuff about Section 702, we debated that at length in the FISA Amendments Act debate a couple years ago. So that was pretty known. The only thing that may not have been known is the exact technical capabilities. But my assumption, and tell me why you think this is not correct, is that any terrorist or would-be terrorist with half a brain in his head would assume that all electronic communications are vulnerable and may be subject to interception. And how does what's his name just released add to that assumption or change that assumption?
Well, and let me address the last point first, because I often hear it that any terrorist who has a brain would figure it out. The fact of the matter is they're terrorists and they're terrorists. And I can speak generally, but I cannot go into some of the more details as to specific harm to national security. But I can tell you every time that we have a leak like this, and if you follow it up and you look at the intelligence afterwards, there are persons that are out there who follow this very, 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 very closely, and they are looking for ways around it. One of the great vulnerabilities that terrorists understand is their communications. And they are consistently looking for ways to have secure communications. And any tidbit of information comes out in terms of our capabilities and our programs and the like, they are immediately finding ways around it. And if we lose, as one of my problems is that we're going to lose because we've got chat, VoIP, a number of other things, lose our ability to get their communications, we are going to be exceptionally vulnerable. I ask you to get the classified briefing as to more specifics, but let nobody be misled in this. This hurts national security. Now, the issue is, how do you balance that against privacy? Understand that. And you may come down differently than others, than the FISA court, than me perhaps. But all I can say is that there is a cost to be paid.